What's up, my friends? Today we're going to be talking about face locks. It's pretty funny, the images that go in your head when you start to consider face locks. In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and grappling arts, these are considered dick moves. So only practice these with friends who are okay and know what you're doing. For example, in our battle school curriculum, in the later portions of the curriculum, we do things that are technically illegal in tournaments because we're not trying to become good jiu-jitsu tournament fighters. We're using Brazilian jiu-jitsu to become better with our self-defense. We can play the game, we can play the sport of jiu-jitsu, but we're doing it for reasons of self-defense. I have a friend of mine who is a shooter, competition shooter. He uses his EDC, that means his everyday carry, to shoot in competitions. Some of the people in the competition start to give him a hard time, and he says, listen, man, I'm not here to be a better competition shooter. I'm using the competition to becoming more competent in my self-defense. That makes sense. With that philosophy here, we're going to be discussing some face locks. Now, these are considered prick moves, dick moves. Be very careful, be very easy. Anytime we're talking about the spine, and neck manipulations, neck cranks, face locks. These can put people out for months, weeks, even years if you're not careful. So tap early, tap often, and be extra sensitive and aware of your training partner. We can replace everything in the gym. What we can't replace are your training partners. With that said, we're going to go ahead and talk about a little bit about the face bones, and how this actually works. We have something called the cloud of power. The cloud of power is about right here in martial arts. If I want to get a wrist lock, kimura lock, arm bar, I want to hold things into where I'm going to be the strongest. The spine, once it bends, the body becomes weaker. Just things to think about. Anytime I want to get a neck crank, face lock, what I'm doing essentially is pulling it into my cloud of power, turning it, and collapsing it. For example, and you can turn it first, bring it into your cloud of power, turn it again, and collapse it. But you'll notice that there's a pattern here. We're going to talk about a few key areas on the face that actually work a lot better than others. The first one is what we call a headband. So around the eye sockets, your skull becomes a little thinner. So what we're talking about is right here on this eye socket. I like to cut, grind, and I come back and scoop it and kind of get it a little bit tighter. That's why it's hard to do these where you guys can feel what I'm doing with a little explanation. Again, I'm pulling it in and I'm cutting into the eye socket with this portion of my wrist. Here. Now, if you're doing sport jiu-jitsu, you don't have to worry about your fingers being pulled. But if not, you can always hide your thumbs on the inside and do a paw grip. If in fact they're going for your fingers, they're trying to bite or any of this business. This bone is going right over the orbital ridge. I'm turning it using the pressure of my chest and my elbows and lats, turning it into the cloud of power and collapsing it. This will get them to yell. The bridge of the nose. The bridge of the nose works very well. Just pull it into your cloud of power. If you can turn the head as you're doing it, that's better. And then collapsing it using your chest. It's this motion that really helps with these locks. Please go slow and smooth and careful. Underneath the bridge of the nose works well. Elbows in, turning slightly, collapsing down. On the chin, be very careful. You can dislocate people's mandibles, in which case you would need to pop it back into place, but you'd be sore for a week, so please be very careful. Right on the chin. This one, I'm literally just pulling it in and using the chest to collapse. I can do this also on the mandible on this side. You'll find where your arm literally fits in the pocket. I'm turning and collapsing. Another one that's fairly nasty, and again, be very careful with these, is literally going knuckle to eye, covering over, elbows down, and collapsing. Or I can use, what was the other one that was being used? Knuckle into the eye, in and collapsing. So these are just some things that you can play with. Be very careful with all of these. If you go too hard on this portion of the mouth, you can literally break everyone's teeth, so please be very careful. The jawline also very weak on some people, so be very careful. All of these need to be done with a lot of caution. I have seen people do it sideways to the head. Of course, you can use the headband on the side to turn and collapse. I can use even the forehead. I've seen the forehead being used with some degree. A pro MMA fighter or a guy who does competition grappling may not tap to it, but a guy who has very little experience will scream. Again, this is not purposes of tapping, but they can be compliance holds for self-defense. Knowing some ways to put immediate pain on someone could pay off in a self-defense situation. And if you need to do the full Monty, which I hate for anyone to ever have to do, it's there for you. So while you're doing these, please keep your partner's safety in mind. And you got to train it, you got to play with it, and the sawing action is what makes it work. I'm going in, and I'm putting pressure back. I'm dragging my elbow in towards me, and then collapsing. With a little bit of practice, you can really get these into your arsenal, and it can become very useful. Be careful. See you on the mats.